Good morning, good morning, good morning. Quick disclosure again, I'm an associated member of T3 Trading Group, which is an SEC registered broker dealer and member of FINRA SIPC. All of my trades are placed through T3 Trading Group, and you should carefully consider whether trading is suitable for you in light of your own financial condition. And then here is the position disclosure. And without further ado, we can get our morning started. All right, so we're gapping down this morning. That's after a nice move up post Netflix after hours yesterday. Still the after hours chart up here. So you can see pretty much right when the market closed, we had this big rep higher and continued to grind up all evening. Things are looking pretty good here, up to this 375 or so in the SPYs after hours, which was the highs from yesterday morning. If you guys remember yesterday morning, we had that really big gap up, sold all the way back down. Netflix helps us get back down, get back up there. I woke up this morning expecting to see a nice little gap up, and that's not really what happened. When I first was logging into my computer, we were flat-ish, and now we're down. So right now, we got the SPYs down 0.6%, we got the Qs down 0.6%, we got the IWM down 0.9%. So IWM is leading lower here a little bit, and that's still with some strength coming out of Netflix. So let's go over to the daily chart. You gap down this morning, I think is a little bit disappointing. It's an interesting area that you really want to see the market hold. I probably should have left the pre-market up for a second because we just perfectly held 368. 368 has become a pretty important kind of inflection point area for this market ever since the CPI day. The CPI day we ran up to 367.50. Next morning we gapped above, but immediately came back below that 368. And then on the inside day on Monday, 368 was basically the high of that. We gapped up above it yesterday, but we held it pretty much as support. 367.50 to 368. It's probably been the area. And then again, pre-market this morning, we perfectly held 368 once again. So 368 on the ES is 3,700. 368 in the SPYs is 3,700 on the ES. So yeah, so this 368 or 367.50 has become a really important inflection area. And then once again this morning, our pre-market low is 367.99. So 368, really important spot for bulls to defend. It's right in the equilibrium zone here. Our 80 EMA is curled up. The 21 EMA is kind of flattened out. That's the beginning of maybe a crossover process if we want to begin to reverse up, but we need a little bit more confirmation. We need this market to prove that it can hold above 368 and then eventually give a next leg, and there's just a lot of pressure on it this morning. And that pressure seems to be coming from this treasury move. So TLT here is not great. TLT is gapping down a percent plus 1.3%. Seems to be heavy on the UK inflation data that came out pretty hot this morning. So it seems like it's what kind of sunk us down a little bit further. We keep talking about the importance of bond yields right now. This TLT continuing to trade down is a headwind for the equity market. Ideally, and I said this a couple days ago when we were kind of testing the upside, it was probably early in the day on the 14th. I felt that if the TLT could really get above like $100.50, it could really help this market run. But obviously, it's in a downtrend. That downtrend has just been continuing, and yeah, I mean we're pretty heavy. Let's see if we lose yesterday's low, which isn't great, and this downtrend just continues. I think it'd be a nice relief for markets if we were able to break up a little bit on TLT, but even if we just could go sideways and stop continuing down, even that might provide a little bit of relief to the market. But it seems like not only are we seeing heavy inflation numbers in the United States, but that's starting to reverberate around the world. Heavy inflation numbers out of Canada, heavy inflation numbers out of the EU, out of the UK. So not great globally. So TLT is a real big thing that we got to continue to watch, and then that's also what happened in the UK. I think is leading to a bounce in the dollar, and this bounce in the dollar is also a headwind for equity markets. I do like this kind of lower high that came in. I could be overreading it. Overall, this pattern is like a bullish wedge that's building out. So we've got higher lows and lower highs. As this thing tightens up, let's see which way we break. A really important spot on the upside in this UUP is $30.57. And then pretty much these absolute highs, like $30.75. So, continue to watch your TLT and your UUP intraday today, because they've just been such important factors for the market overall, and that's as we're kind of testing this big support level. So, for the moment, keep it simple, stupid is one of my favorite sayings in trading. While we're holding above this 367.50 to 368, I think you can initially look to try to buy this gap down, but certainly have your stop losses in place, and watch the dollar, and watch treasuries, and watch the VIX. So that is the market, and that's with, it's such an interesting environment because we've got such a battle going on between the macro and the micro. It's really been macro factors that have kind of continued to drive this market down: inflation, interest rates, bigger picture stuff like that. But the micro, and by micro I really mean earnings reports, this earnings season is starting off pretty solid. Between what we saw with the financials and then Netflix coming out last night. Netflix is something we can continue to pay attention to. Important levels after hours were 275 resistance, and then 268 was acting as some support. We just lost 268 here pre-market, so maybe that support becomes resistance. Those are the areas that I would watch. But Netflix trading well on what I thought was honestly just an okay earnings report. Then same thing with Adobe. Did Adobe come down now? Adobe's only up 1% now, with a really, with a pretty widespread pre-market. So we'll watch this Adobe, but Adobe initially reacted well to what I also thought was mediocre numbers. Procter & Gamble is reacting well. ASML is acting well. BKR is acting well, and there's some others that are down, like Ally Financial is down. But I think that the generally the more important reports, even if the numbers have been kind of mediocre, the stocks have been trading pretty well on it. So the micro seems a bit more bullish than the macro. The macro obviously has just been very heavy and kind of continuing to lead us down. So that's the battle. That's the battle right now. I am encouraged by the way some of these earnings have been playing out, but this market, I still don't fully trust it. So let's watch 368 on the downside, 367.50 to 368 on the downside for the SPYs, and then the 375 area is becoming a little near-term resistance between yesterday's gap up failure, and then that's kind of the highs from after hours yesterday. And again, initially here I would probably lean to the long side while we're holding above the daily level. So I just went over some earnings names also that you can kind of pay attention to for some intraday trades. Some other names, I don't have a ton on my list today as far as setups that were getting me excited, but a couple that I was looking at. One, off of Netflix, I'm assuming off of Netflix, though the business model is a little bit different. Off of Netflix, some of the social stocks are looking okay. So I think Snap above $11 is something that we can look at. The only thing you got to remember with Snap is that they have earnings after the close tomorrow, so it doesn't give you a lot of room there. But if the Snap starts clearing 11, it looks good. Pins had a little bit of news as well, and was also trading decently pre-market. But I just think that Pins is in a sloppy area on the daily chart, so I did not add that one to my list. Snap's on there. A couple of names that are on here for upgrades. EOG got upgraded, I think, for the second day in a row. 125, I think, is important. 125 to 125.50. It's gapping up above that. So I think that you could look at EOG long versus 125 to 125.50 based on the big picture. ExxonMobil got upgraded, but let's look at XLE first. XLE I still think is one of the best looking sectors that's out there. What's USO doing this morning? USO is up small, so continue to watch that. But XLE over here has just been trading really well. You need this XLE to start clearing above 82.50. So that would be the level that I would look at XLE. And then if you see how XLE starting to go, ExxonMobil, this daily chart pattern here looks great. It held that 102 resistance more or less again yesterday, and it got upgraded this morning. So I think that 102 for ExxonMobil is still in play. Maybe that can kind of be a leader for the space. But a lot of these things have pretty good looking charts. The Oxy chart I think looks pretty decent. 68 is kind of a shorter term level that you could look at for a long through. Chevron here looks pretty decent, also kind of above yesterday's high through 164 would be areas that I would look at Chevron for a potential long. We've looked at this PR. I think that this PR is still in play above like $9 to like $9.07 would kind of be your trigger on that. VLO is one that we've spoken about a lot as well. This VLO I think looks decent, kind of above yesterday's high. So energy in general, I think, is some of the better names that are out there. A little bit different, still in energy, but a little different from some of the others. BTU, kind of more of a coal name. BTU had an inside day yesterday, so you could look at the inside day. High and low, 26 is a little bit of potential support, and then like 27.50 to 28, or yesterday's high is 27.38 that you could look for upside continuation in BTU. So some of those energy plays, we'll see what they're able to do. Again, potentially led by ExxonMobil. Let's take a quick look at FANG. Apple, I think, is sloppy. It got hit with that bad news yesterday. I don't see Apple as kind of a go-to stock today necessarily, unless for some reason it's showing strength. But that news yesterday probably makes this one not the one to really watch. Netflix is gone, so you can just watch the intraday on that. 250 was the really big level for Netflix. Facebook, I don't know. I don't have a strong opinion on where Facebook is in this area either. Microsoft is probably a little bit stronger. Amazon 115 is probably an area that I would pay attention to, and Google 100. So I'm watching Google 100. I'm watching Amazon 115 as far as FANG names go. So that is FANG. Energy we spoke about. Real quick look at financials. Trading well on the earnings reports overall, but XLF looks a little bit like the market. You do want to see if kind of yesterday's low can hold for XLF, but the moving averages haven't caught up on this yet. So I'm probably going to be a little bit patient with XLF right now. So again, big picture, really watching the market to see if we can hold 368, and maybe you can look at Amazon 115 area or Google 110 as a proxy kind of for the market in that zone, and then see where the relative strength and relative weakness comes in, and see if XLE can trade well. And that's all I got. And not a lot. I don't have a tremendous amount of conviction for today. So happy to turn it over to you guys and see what you guys are looking at. First thing I'm seeing here is from Chinggis, Procter & Gamble. We spoke about already. He's mentioning 130. Yeah, 130, a little bit of an area, so you could look to be long versus 130 in PG. NDAQ, which is the NASDAQ, reported earnings. I did not put this on my list because I thought that the chart was sloppy, and it's kind of just in the middle of the ranges from the last few days. But this is also an earnings name. Baker Hughes is on my list. I like this. 24 is the bigger level. It's gapping up pretty big, 24 to 24.50. It might be gapping up too big to be able to be long off of that. And ExxonMobil we spoke about as well. Plug, I think, put an upgrade, I think. And I know that Matt's been looking at that. Freeze Pack Logistics expand agreement to supply fuel cells at 9 additional sites. Okay, so yeah, Plug, a little disappointing yesterday, but with I think it got upgraded. So you could look to be long versus yesterday's low. The 19 area in this Plug is important. You really want to see this thing getting and holding above the $19 area for Plug. Mark also mentioning that the Qs are right at the June lows, so that's notable. And also notable, if you read Shane's link at the IWM, and I've mentioned this a few times, is the only index that held those June lows on the downside there. Jerry bringing up Disney as a potential Netflix secondary play. I like that. Somebody asked me about Disney, I think in either the afternoon meeting yesterday or the morning meeting yesterday, I don't remember. And I didn't love the chart, but Disney through 100 as a secondary play off Netflix is something that I like the thought process behind. So yeah, Disney through 100, I think you can pay attention to it. And you're also mentioning UAL. What am I missing on this? Did UAL report? It's up 5%. If it did, I missed it. I don't know what's going on in this UAL. But these airlines have been trading pretty well in general. American working its way up. Delta, I think Delta was the one that kind of pre-announced back here. This thing's trading really well as it continues to hold above 31. So these airlines have been performing well, but it's kind of a big move here to chase. Like this Jets, you want to be long versus like 16.30. It's trading at $17. But UAL, if there's news here, and it looks like there is, this 39 is a little bit of a level. Just keep in mind that it's extended, so you're really just taking kind of momentum trades. Was I on the daily chart for the SPY? Probably. I was looking at a pre-market chart, and then I was looking at a daily chart. Usually, you know, I'll look at the pre-market chart, but I take a top-down approach. So we're always starting with the big picture, especially because for the most part, pre-market, that's all we really have to work with. Shady covered some Netflix. Good job. Jerry bringing up AMAT. Yeah, semis. So semis are still really important. This AMAT's gotten real tight in here. So AMAT short through 74 or long through like 77.50 to 78, whichever way this pattern breaks. Obviously, it's been relatively weak, so the downside of that trade might be better. Micron we spoke about in yesterday's afternoon meeting also, since we're looking at semis. 55's huge, but this has also been very weak. So at this point for Micron, I would just have an alert up at $55. NVIDIA has been a little bit more of a focus for me, but I think that the NVIDIA chart's sloppy. You really need NVIDIA above 120. It was above 120 yesterday. It kind of closed pretty much right at the level, and it's trading below it right now with the entire market gapping down. AMD's weaker. AMD 60. 60 is the biggest spot. Honestly, this NVIDIA is probably my favorite right now as far as a chart. They're all pretty weak, but this is the closest one towards getting above an important level. AMD 60 is much further away. Micron 55 is much further away. And again, they're really weak, so you could look to short through some of these support levels potentially also, like an AMAT 74 like you brought up there. From Brad Zinga, are there times that you have trusted the market? That's probably a better question for an afternoon meeting where we can kind of get into that. I'm not really sure what you mean by the question. Are there times that I've trusted the market? I always trust the price action because the price action doesn't lie. But we could get into a longer spiel on that if you want to bring it back up in an afternoon meeting. Spotify, I don't really trade Spotify very much. I guess there was some positive news for Pinterest this morning that was related to music streaming. I don't know if that's bad for Spot or not. This $90 is a really important inflection area. So I guess see if Spotify can reclaim $90 if it's showing some strength, and there could be a trade for you through $90 on the upside. Oh, this thing's basically at all-time lows. Interesting. I am a Spotify user, but I think that their business model is difficult. Yeah, $90. $90 would be a spot that I would pay attention to for Spot. For if it's showing relative strength, you could try to go long through 90. OIH. Yeah, so I looked at the XLE. OIH is similar but different. 250 is a really important level here, and it's set to gap just above it. You could try to buy like versus 250 right off the open for really tight risk, but you're kind of asking to get shaken out of it. If you're more of a scalper, that could be a trade that you look for. If you're a little bit bigger picture and you want to be long OIH, which makes a lot of sense to me as it tries to clear above 250, you kind of have to be long versus either yesterday's low or the low from the day before that. But OIH looks good. Like I was saying before, energy names generally are what I think is kind of the better looking charts right now out there. And we just want to confirm that there's going to be some sort of relative strength on an intraday basis. Oh, wow, NEO smoked. I like NEO as a company. The chart's been abysmal, so I've been staying away from it. $12 is huge support here for NEO. Wow. I remember trading this pattern here to the upside back in 2020. Yeah, this $12 area is really huge support, and it's threatening to break it. It feels like you're kind of chasing to the downside. It's gapping down 3.5% after getting smoked yesterday. It feels like you're chasing a little bit, but you could try to short versus 12. But I think that the better trade would be to give it to yesterday's close, which is also the pre-market high, which is about $12.20 or 12.25. Or the flip side, actually, because this is big support, is that if it's breaking up through 12, you could try to go long through $12 versus whatever the low is at that time. From Boris, a safer bullish swing approach to Qs, maybe. There is a limit to how much downside there will be. And then Rock says 0 is the limit. Yeah, of course there's a limit to how much the downside could be, but the downside could be significantly more. I mean, what did Jamie Dimon just say? That, what did he say, 20-30% more downside is reasonable for the S&P, and the Qs have an even higher beta, so you could be looking at, I mean, in a bad case scenario here, we could be looking at the SPYs getting back down, the Qs getting back down to $200. So I would be careful just kind of randomly buying and hoping that a bottom comes in, because we're down the amount that we're down on the year. With that said, I mean, I don't know, this is kind of more bigger picture stuff. I was looking at some statistics, like historically when the market's down, the amount that it's down right now, I think there's only been 1 or 2 times in history where 12 months from now the market wasn't up from where we are. But it doesn't mean that it has to happen again that way this time. So I'd be a little bit careful with that thought process. Probably take your cues from the market. Let the technicals tell you what you want to do. Lots of positive gamma, so we're stickier above 365. Okay, it's good to know. Talk a little bit about we did the airlines already, so I'm going to move past that. Impression that the U.S. has put a $70 floor on oil. I haven't seen that. I did see that Biden was trying to guarantee that that oil companies can be profitable or something like that if they're drilling, which it's weird to me. I don't understand how they can guarantee profitability for private companies, but whatever. OIH and airlines, we spoke about both. Some of the best looking stuff that's out there, I think. Energy, the airlines look really good, but the airlines are maybe up a little bit too much at UAL. I still don't know what I'm missing on this UAL. From Kenny, VXRT looks okay. VRTX. This is biotech? Yeah, it is. So I usually stay away from biotechs. It's not my area of strength. With that, I trade like XBI and like Labu a lot, like the ETFs. I don't really like the individual names. I'm not a doctor. It's not an area that I have an advantage on. And it's always the biotech stock that you see that, gaps down 90% or gaps up 400%. And as much as I would love to wake up one morning to having a stock 400% in my favor, I'm not willing to risk it capping down 90% against me. So I usually stay away from individual biotech stocks. This VRTX also looks like it's very expensive, and it's probably pretty wide, has a thin with a wide spread. So I agree with you that the chart looks fantastic, but this is usually not like a go-to type of thing for me. But above like this 350 cents to like 303, this VRTX I think looks really good just from a pure technical perspective. Can energy stocks do well with USO not participating? Yes, they can, because there's value there and the market's been rotating into value. You could make an argument that a lot of energy names or energy broadly is cheap, and there's certainly a bullish argument that you can make on oil overall. I don't think that oil is downtrending so much as it is kind of going sideways and consolidating. So I think that you could have a sideways price of oil with oil names actually working their way higher. But it's something that you need to pay attention to, because the other day, I don't remember if it was yesterday or the day before that, when we were looking for some of these XLE names to break out, oil intraday took a big hit, and then it made it more difficult for those energy names. But we have consistently seen this year XLE stronger and outperforming oil on a lot of individual days. Amgen looks okay, but I think it's a short candidate. I don't have too much of an opinion for you on this one either. I mean, it's had a great move. So if you're taking a short here, really all you can expect, I think, is a move down to the 80 MA. And and that's still a few dollars of downside. But you got to make sure that the risk is worth looking for that few dollars of downside. I would more prefer to look for a dip in this thing to buy than try to actually capture the short move if I was going to trade it. But I'm not going to trade it. I think that on a bigger picture here, this is another really sloppy chart. I don't like trading stocks that are stuck in big ranges that have big price congestion. They tend to make it more difficult to trade. I like to trade stocks that are in open space, where people haven't traded them in the past, or there's less price memory. The stocks are able to like flow a lot more easily when you're looking at them in those types of areas.
I was doing it with Amy the other day, so one of them is.
I would be very. I mean, you got to be very careful. I'm not trading Twitter. You know, I guess if you're short, your loss capacity is capped to 54.20. So your worst case scenario is that you lose $2.40. Your best case scenario is that something happens to the deal and this thing, you know, gets smoked. Without the deal going through, which it looks like it's going through, without the deal going through, this stock's probably worth like $20. But the probability is now looking very likely that the deal is going through. So I'm staying away from Twitter. You know, these buyouts, once they're kind of confirmed, it's not my game. But I guess technically your risk is capped at like $2.40 to the upside, and your reward could be $20 if somehow the deal doesn't go through. But I'm pretty confident it's going through. UAL reported yesterday. Okay, I somehow missed that. Thanks for the information. I'm almost out of time here. Qualcomm short below 110 for Sebastian. Yeah, sure. I like it if it's relatively weak and if the market's breaking its level. That would be the other big thing that I'm paying attention to, is if the market's breaking that level that we discussed. For the moment, I'm more interested kind of in longs than pressing shorts into the gap down while we're gapping down into support. Usually means you don't want to press shorts unless we're really starting to break it. Exxon 102, Fame bringing up Square. I'm out of time. Square looks good above 60. I would just have an alert up there for 60. All right, guys, good luck. Trade smart. Manage your risk. It's the key to the business. It's the key to the business. I'm going to be right back.